One of my favorite tropes from back when I was a kid in TV shows and movies that I've completely seen go away is that one trope of the characters basically going into the internet or going into a computer. You could say that this trend extends way further than that with, obvious episodes where characters go into TV shows or movies or video games specifically, but those are still around from what I see. This one is not. I almost never see this anymore. Part of this might just have to do with the fact that the internet was kind of perceived as kind of being this cool, new, interesting thing, where now it is just a mundane, everyday part of our lives. It's no different from, using a toaster. Nobody thinks that using a toaster is interesting. But there was a lot of projects like this that I can just think of from back in the day. The last project I think that ever came out that had this sort of trope was Ralph Breaks the Internet, which we don't talk about. Back in 2019 or so. But that, again, we don't talk about. But even things like Cyber Chase, which was a show made for literal children, like really young children, had this trope. The entire project basically had these characters going into a computer in every single episode and ending up in a different world. But today I kind of plan on just looking back on other examples of this that I can think of from just other shows that I've watched. And if you have your own ideas of any shows that did this, just comment it down below. One of the first examples that I could possibly think of seeing this trope as a kid was that one episode of Tom and Jerry, or the Tom and Jerry show, where they literally go inside of the internet via Tom building his own computer out of garbage parts. Something goes wrong, it gets electrocuted, and both Tom and Jerry get sucked into the computer. This is all after Tom tries to use Jerry as a freaking mouse, which, that's gotta be some form of animal abuse. At some point, they start fighting computer clone versions of themselves, and it's just kind of a mess, honestly. But I just remember when this episode aired, I was probably 5 or something, and I literally remember trying to build my own computer out of a shoebox. Again, I didn't have a computer back when I was a kid. At least up until I was 10, 2013, 2014, around that point. Another primary example, or I guess a canon event if you grew up with Nickelodeon, was that one episode where Timmy Turner went into the internet. In the episode, Information Super Sturway, what's it called again? It's not super. You know what? I'm not looking it up right now while I'm recording. But basically, in this episode, it literally just revolves around Timmy writing a really cringy letter to his lover, I guess, or one-sided lover, Trixie Tang, and it just goes super wrong as Cosmo, Wanda, and Timmy's dad all end up adding really cringe things to it. So Timmy has to wish to go into the internet so he can retrieve the message and stop it from being sent. Because this shit's probably gonna land him in prison or on Looksmax forums for life if he ends up messing up. Bro might have to make B board his home now. Due to the way that true love works in the Fairly Odd Parents, Timmy can't just unwish the letter, which means he has to do something else to make sure that this letter doesn't send, which is why he decides to go into the internet. And he literally just ends up surfing the web, literally, no joke. Again, I don't know why this is such a prevalent joke in a lot of these different cartoons from around this time. I get it, it's obvious, wow, surfing the web with, a surfboard. And I get it, this is, a joke that all these shows tried to make back in the day, and I get it, it's a pun, but, I don't know, I just find it really dumb. This episode is also pretty infamous in the Fairly Odd Parents community for allowing us to see the bedrooms of all the other kids. And Trixie's friend's bedroom is there is no rational explanation for this. I don't know if she's a you know what? I'm just gonna stay away from commenting on this because I feel like I'm gonna get massacred. At some point, he runs into the very famous YouTuber Diamond Bolt. Also, I just love how early 2000s this is. The mix of CGI and 2D animation is just chef's kiss, Chef Boyardee. And you know who else can get the DO? My lawyers told me that it's best to refrain from this sinful and very ungodly lifestyle. At some point, this dude ends up getting downloaded by his teacher as a file, which, okay, just saying that out loud sounds really freaking bad. Overall, there are just a lot of antics that ultimately lead to one of my favorite jokes in a kid's show ever. A joke in which Timmy's dad walks into his room again, and this time is greeted to Timmy looking at his computer with a picture of Mr. Crocker in a really skimpy, really tight dress. And he basically says, you are not supposed to be on those sort of websites, which, yes, you should stay away from that. Again, my lawyers are telling me to refrain from saying what I'm about to say. Websites. And again, I don't know, man. Miss Turner, man, she might need to look into her husband's search history after what he said. Also, I just want to know from like anybody who was like a 10-year-old back in like 2002 or whenever this episode came out, what 10-year-olds communicate through email? Because like I've never sent a girl an email to get with her. That's just weird to me. Never given a girl my email. I know they had that line in Spy Kids 3D, but I always thought that that was an ironic joke even back then. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Also, the Crocker heads are just straight up terrifying. Like, I get it. It's like supposed to be a computer virus, but like, damn, boy, get them shits away from me. So I don't even feel like I can make a video about this topic without including or at least talking about this show. Code Lyoko. Yeah, the show where the kid's literal whole plot is to go inside of a virtual world. I cannot not talk about this. So basically, to summarize what Code Lyoko is a show about a group of kids who are in France because the show is made in France, which is the capital of Italy, which is in Denmark, which is part of the UK, which we defeated in Normandy in World War I. Basically, this group of kids are tasked with going into a virtual world to constantly fight this computer program called Xana, who can manifest within the real world. Their whole goal is to stop Xana from manifesting in the real world. There's also a girl named Eileen who's stuck inside the computer for the first couple seasons, who's also this kid's e-girl, kind of. It's weird. He usually stays in the real world while the other characters go into the virtual world to fight all sorts of creatures. Also, every time they lose, they like reverse time. It's kind of a weird thing, but yeah, I mean, I really don't have too much to say about it since I haven't watched too much of the show. But all you have to know is that these characters go from 2D to 3D constantly, with the 2D world being designated as their real-life human world, and the 3D world being the computer program world, which, I mean, just imagine having a computer program that is more realistic than real life. Also, they completely replaced the 2D real world with, like, a real-life, like, people world for, like, the last couple seasons, and people really hated that, so, yeah. Also, this show has some weird-ass moments, like, some really uncomfortable stuff. I don't know about you French people, but is this normal for you? Is this normal? Like, I don't know, man. Also, their dog has a wiener. It's kind of funny that the show came out so early on in, like, just the mainstreaming of the internet that, like, you kind of see where the internet kind of was as a thing, but it's still pretty different from, like, how the internet is now in a way. Again, with these basically all being a bunch of middle school students who crowd around one computer, that's basically how computers were back in the day. Like, everybody having their own personalized PC just wasn't a thing. And even now, it isn't that much of a thing. Like, people just have their smartphones and other devices usually. One other primary example I can think of from my childhood is TMNT Back to the Sewer, where basically its turtles end up going to the internet quite a bit. But I feel like I kind of have to explain why they do this, though. Okay, so in the season before this, named Fast Forward, the turtles end up getting sent into the future by the grandson of April O'Neil and Casey Jones. But this is by accident. He doesn't plan on this. He builds a time window that just accidentally happens to send the turtles to the future. And so for the rest of the season, they're basically just in the future. At some point, he makes this computer program that helps them train, and this ends up going horribly wrong at some point because it ends up in the creation of a rogue AI named Viral who wants to just destroy shit and really wants to hurt the turtles. So they end up defeating Viral quite a bit throughout this season. And then in the first episode of Back to the Sewers, the turtles are being sent back into their time period finally after an entire season of having to be in the future. And Viral ends up going back with them and tries to mess with them, sending them to all sorts of different time periods. At some point, Viral ends up taking over the body of their robot butler, or at least Cody's robot butler, who accidentally ended up getting sent into the time machine with them, and ends up killing Master Splinter in the process. But here's the thing, since this happened in like the time travel portal thing, somehow this translates to them being sent into different parts of the internet, or at least Master Splinter's bits being all across the internet. At some point, Donatello, the smart one, realizes that if he's able to get all of Master Splinter's bits throughout the internet, he would be able to bring Master Splinter back, and that's where the show basically begins. But slightly before that, the Viral character they thought they defeated apparently ends up getting into like Shredder's data or something, who's at this point a dead guy, or presumed to be dead, and ends up becoming a computerized futuristic version of the Shredder, and she's just no longer Viral, she's literally just the Shredder with the Shredder's brain. Due to, I guess, Shredder backing up his memories and like files. It's kind of weird, but basically that's what happens. After rewatching this show, I have to say that the Master Splinter data bits part of this season isn't actually as expensive as I remember it being. Like, they do travel into the internet quite a few times. There's literally a portal that Donnie makes, but it's not as prevalent as I thought it was. Although that might have something to do with just how short the season is, with it only being like 12 episodes. Usually they just end up going into generic internet type terrain and racing with these car things that Donnie makes, whilst also having to fight the new version of the Shredder who cannot manifest inside of the real world and is basically just stuck inside of the internet, which actually sounds really lame when you think about it. Bro's basically just a Discord mod. I hear the money calling. One of the more creative uses of this is the one episode where they basically go into some World of Warcraft type parody world where basically it's an online MMO and Mikey's like super into it, and also Raphael ends up looking like a court gesture and kind of ends up just looking like Harley Quinn. I mean, that's just kind of funny, not gonna lie. And then he gets turned into a frog. Donnie's like a wizard or like a mage type thing, and then Leo's a hunter, I guess. They end up teaming up with this goblin guy to defeat this dragon and then a bunch of other villains, at least from what I remember. And then this episode has a pretty funny plot twist when you learn that the character they ended up teaming up with was one of the bad guys that they were fighting throughout this entire season. Also, in the last episode, Shredder does manage to manifest himself into the real world and then gets defeated like in one episode. Like, I swear, this is like the third version of Shredder in this show, and he gets defeated in like one day. Again, if you haven't seen this show, just remember, this one's the coolest one. All my homies hate Cyber Shredder. Either way, there's a lot of other examples I can think of off the top of my head, but can't really like make a whole section on, such as that time where Venom and Carnage were going into the internet and the comics. I guess that one Ben 10 episode that I don't know if I can count because I guess it's more about a video game than it is the internet, and Cyber Chase because like there's not much to say about it, but you know, I did talk about it. Also maybe could have expanded on like the Tom and Jerry part, but I mean it's Tom and Jerry, like the whole short was like maybe 10 minutes long at most. So I don't know, if you guys like this video, like, subscribe, comment, and I swear to God, my girlfriend, she is real. She's just stuck in a computer program. You wouldn't understand. And as always,